I squeezed a massive spot behind my ear the other day. It was probably a day off being absolutely ripe, nevertheless, or perhaps because of that. It was, by a country mile, the most satisfying thing that's happened to me in the last 3 years. No, I tell a lie, 7 years. Before I'd even located the landing ground of the puss, there was a knock at the shed door. It was my father, with Mrs. Robinson in tow. He, as usual, deploying his uber narcissist tool set, didn't speak. His business at my door, unexplained. That expression set into his already sour face meant that ordinary people, like me, would implicitly understand the important matters he'd called to discuss, without the need for further explanation. We stood in mute standoff for a moment, until, eventually, I gestured for them to come in. They hesitated halfway through an already tentative step forward, and ended up retreating a little. Of course, I am used to the smell, and they are not. It's a pity, because I think Mrs. Robinson would have enjoyed the shabby chic soft furnishings I've assembled. Neil and I, our foundation course in shabby chic already complete, thanks to watching performance, would soon upgrade that know-how by dint of a real-life experience coming our way. It would seal the deal as far as interior decorating was concerned for a lifetime for both of us. It came about during that time when we were making our university choices, and I doubt this still exists, but back then, we used to visit them on open days to check them out. We'd hit upon this idea to select 3 London colleges each and to visit them all, of which ultimately we'd actually visit but one between us, but by doing so, secure a week's holiday in London, courtesy of the state. The day before we were due to set off, Hism, a soi-disant, frank-speaking down-to-earth type, challenged Neil about our plans. He had some sort of status, like third assistant deputy, in the newly built sixth form college in which we'd found ourselves. He was the sort of joyless cove like my father, who, we suspected, had never even commentated on his own bowel movements. "Aren't you due to sit the Oxford entrance paper next Thursday?" he asked Neil. "Oh, that," said Neil. "I haven't bothered to look at their prospectus, or whatever they call their brochure, or done any of the research that people like you seem to think is necessary, but—" Hism interrupted him to say, "There's still time," or something like that. Neil simply sighed and continued, "But based on my own observations, I've decided that everyone I know that has ever gone there is an irredeemable cunt." The thing we liked best about it was the way that Neil just continued to look him in the eye, as if they were two similar status adults discussing the weather or who they thought should open the batting in the next test match. Hism was furious beyond words. Then he regathered himself, straightened up, and started talking about the school, its traditions and heritage, but good old Neil cut him off before he got going. I just loved that he'd remembered to pay him back for his ill manners by doing the same back to him. But then he topped everything that had gone before by adding, "This? It's like being educated in a fucking motorway services station." Only now, as I reflect on that scene, do I hear words which I thought were so smart at the time, coming out of a child's face in a child's voice. I have an adult's voice now, so I said to Mrs. Robinson, who was either too polite or too scared to say out loud that which she'd complained to my father about. I'd tell you to shut your face, if you had the courage to open it in the first place. I tried to do my best impression of Neil as I returned my father's furious glower. I don't know what had caused the complaint. It had been made at the end of that day when I was out of it at the party she'd organized. I'd have probably said something like, "Are you up here too?" Nothing horrible or insulting. I don't talk to people that way. It's not in my nature. I have rediscovered the confidence to stick to my guns. Nobody knows me better than I understand myself, and it is up to me to love and cherish that person because nobody else does. Retreating back into those memories of my time with Neil has regalvanized me a little, and I sense that it's turning into something good. I wasn't a deferential twit, scared of living back then. My father modeled that, not me. And now, I've connected again with that good thing I used to be. If that creates social friction as a side product, so what? I'm still going there. Father made an attempt to reopen the subject later in the day, but it's too little too late for that cove to show any interest in my welfare or nurturing now. Besides which, his motivation was probably more about destroying a little bit more of what remained of my self-esteem. That's why, shortly after Crumpet Hour, he found the shed area roped off, and a small flag establishing independence of the territory hoisted. You'd think I wouldn't want to draw attention to myself given all that has happened. You don't know about that. Yet, of course, I haven't told you about it yet. But bollocks to that. We independent now. We big, we bold, and we bad if we have to be. On that trip to London, Neil and I took our first faltering steps into adulthood. I achieved more in that week than I did in all those years where father's mentorship stopped at dumping me in front of the tele for days and nights on end as my sole instrument of education, nurture, and succor. He didn't like what came back at the end of that week, but I did, do. We went as passengers of Nobby Clark in his lorry, and I'll tell you all about that next time.